Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 34 of the Nord Search podcast, where we speak to leaders in the power trading industry. So I'm very excited today to be joined by someone who's got an amazing track record leading and scaling short-term power trading teams for some of the biggest names in the industry. So I'm really happy today to be joined by Pierre-Emmanuel Dionnet. So Pierre, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Patrick, for inviting me for discussing this captivating topic, which is power market and short term.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a deep dive into power trading today with yourself, because I know you've been in the space for a very long time. But for those of our audience who don't know you, Pierre-Emmanuel, could you just give us your backstory? Because it's really interesting.
So the backstory is long because I'm already old in this business. So I started in 2001 with actually PowerNext, which was the French power exchange, a project which was launched by Euronext. Now PowerNext is maybe not known by the new joiner on this market because it merged with EX to become Apex. But at this time, I participated to launch this market. We were only 6 persons in this team. And after I found this extremely captivating because I was studying commodities, trading commodities, and instead of doing cafe or cacao, I thought that the power would be the new trend. And I like the fact that it's very complex fundamentally to approach it. So I continue on that. And in this, I was in internship for EDF. I was in internship with Enel, where I was analyst. And finally, I found my first trading job in CNR, Compagnie Nationale du Rhône. So Compagnie Nationale du Rhône, for the one who does not know, it's a company who belongs mostly to the state and to Suez. So 51 to the state and the rest to Suez. And Suez at this time has several trading houses. They had Electrabel, Gaz de France, and CNR. And when I joined CNR, we were building a new team around one engineer, one ex-trader of Société Générale, one ex-trader of Enron, and myself. And it was very exciting because Siena until this time was just managing their assets. So they have 3,000 megawatts of hydro. And basically one reservoir and the rest is a run-of-river. And basically they were not really optimizing in the best way their assets. So the hydro is something once it's built, it's basically it's for free. So there is no marginal cost or very low. So they were always making money. But they wanted to have to professionalize a bit the optimization of the assets. And we built this team of 4 persons, and our job was to help them to optimize better the assets and, of course, to do some prop trading. So I'm truly very proud to say that we were maybe the first company, the most active one on the intraday. At this time, the intraday was very different than what is it today. At this time, the intraday basically it was mostly, I would say, 100% or 99% business and market for the generators. So basically what was happening is like when we had some imbalance, we were calling by phone some French counterparties, and actually at this time it was just EDF. So EDF, and then we were calling all German counterparty, we were calling generators, we were calling all Swiss generators, checking if there is some capacity at the border, and basically taking the phone and calling everyone in the same time to try to get the best price. And sometimes we could notice that some people were clearly more aggressive for buying, some others for selling. So in this case, we could also directly make some arbitrage on the phone with one and the other one. So it was like this. And then after, once this was done, you have the obligation to reserve the capacity, to call to the grid operator, to say, I'm going to transit energy from this to this. So basically it was it was more a job of sale or broker, putting people together What was happening as well is that after the day-ahead exchange, some counterparties, at this time it was a lot of banks, Barclays, for instance, Merrill Lynch, and so on. So a lot of counterparties and pure traders, so no generators, they had some imbalance after the day-ahead exchange. So they were calling us basically to help them to get rid of their position. I'm really saying getting rid of their position because they didn't want to keep this during the intraday. And we're happy to help them, of course, in taking some margin. Sometimes we are taking the risk, of course, that we would not need this energy. So we were doing some pure speculation as well. But yeah, this was the intraday business at the very beginning. So I'm talking about 20 years ago. And so in Siena, we were very active on this. We were very active on the balancing market, and then very active on all the curve. We are trading only power, but all the curve until calendar. We were extremely active, and myself even more on the day-ahead auctions. At this time, it was explicit auctions. And we all know that this explicit auctions is not a perfect system because sometimes economically it was interesting to transit the energy from one country to another country. But this energy was not transited because the countries on each side of the border were not well priced. So step by step, they replace this explicit auction by market coupling and by flow-based market capacity. But 20 years ago, it was almost all Europe was in explicit auction. So it was very big business behind. It was fantastic, very interesting because it was taking fundamentals into account, but also a lot of game of theory. So this was extremely good. So I stayed there maybe 5 years, something like that. And then at some point, Gregor Baumrich, who was the head of trading in Enron and after in Hess, I think, called me because he joined Ezpada as a shareholder. And he wanted someone who knows the short-term business to help him to develop in Ezpada the Western trading and also Italy and the Italian borders. And when he called me, it was extremely interesting for me because I thought that exotic to go in Prague. And I was bored, a bit bored in Siena because it was not active enough and I wanted to change. So I decided to join Ezpada. So the first thing that I did is to launch the market access everywhere. At this time also some other people joined, so to help me to develop it. So I took care of France because I'm French. I took care of Italy and Italian borders. And then I set up this took me maybe 1 year, something like that. And then after I started to trade the balancing market in France, continue to trade the intraday. And then the spot and until front months. So I was pricing basically all Europe, beginning mostly Western countries and Italy. And after step by step, I started to price basically all Balkan, Hungary, Croatia, Slovenia, absolutely all countries on an hourly basis. And at the time of COVID, I was head of short-term trading, have a small team. I was not extremely satisfied. Let's say, because my statement was that it was for me complicated to make my own models, to train the people and also to manage them. And maybe because it was COVID, I don't know, everyone was thinking about what he should do better and so on and so on. So I was like really in this thoughts of what I would do next in my career. And I have extremely good chance that one company named Second Foundation asked for me to join them because for 1 year they were trying to make some money on the continuous intraday and they could not. They were coming from, it was mostly developers and mathematicians, and they were coming from different business. So they couldn't manage it. They couldn't make money with that. So basically they were looking for someone who has this short-term experience. And I was maybe the only one available. But also I knew the shareholder initially because at some point he was asking for me to some advice for managing some wind power plant in Finland. So I was already in contact somehow with them. And then basically what they proposed me, they said, look, we are going to give you very good developers, very good data scientists, good mathematician. So you will be well surrounded. You come and you tell us how to make money. So I joined them, and for me it was a big challenge, and to be honest, because I stopped to do the intraday 8 years before joining them. And when I joined them, actually the intraday was not anymore bilateral on the phone. Completely different. Voilà. It was XBid. So now, of course, everyone knows now on XBid, you have on the same order book several countries if there is still some capacity between neighborhood countries after they had leftover capacity or after the recalculation of the flow base. And it means that you can trade if you are in Czech Republic. I'm in Czech Republic. You can trade in your order book with a Portuguese guy or whatever. So the market was completely different. So my first journey actually before joining them was actually for 6 months. I was giving them the what kind of data is needed for this market. Then when I joined them after 6 months, it was in September 2020. The first thing for me was basically to sit in front of the screen of the market and to learn the rules, because I didn't know anything about XBit. So I learned the rules. I saw some behaving also on the market, and then I started to draft the model. The first model that I was drafting was actually to take a position on day ahead and close this position on the continuous intraday, so forecasting the continuous intraday price. And once I built a prototype model, I was simply backtesting, yes, but the better backtest is to play live. So I was playing live and step by step like this, calibrating the model. And once I reach good results, then at this time we were only 6 in Second Foundation. Then we started to recruit data scientists, traders, and basically I didn't want to trade. I found didn't want to trade anymore. I found more interest for me to be on the field of looking for how to make always more money, finding new strategies with algo, finding new strategies in playing the continuous intraday, in playing the imbalance, and basically this was my main role. So we found data scientists, we trained the traders were trading, but we didn't want the traders to trade discretionary. So the idea was really that the trader is taking a position based on output of the models. So my job was basically to find ideas how to make money, and then to give my ideas to the data scientists in order that, as I said in the concept, they are better than me for making models. So basically their job was to make a model according to the inputs that I was giving to them. And based on my 20 years experiences on the energy markets and my understanding of the market, this helped to build very good models. So already after 8 months, starting in September 2020, so first 6 months for building database, then 8 months to really find ideas how to make money, create a team, and so on, and train the team. Then from April to 21, we started to pay the seed cost, and then we had several market access around April to 21, maybe 8, something like that. And then it was incredible because the P&L was increasing every month to stabilize at the first step was to jump and stabilize. And what was the most exceptional is that in 6 months, only 2 days were negative days. So this proved that we found the recipe, and it was nothing random. I'm not considering myself as lucky persons. If I'm going to casino, I will lose in cash machine in the cash machine. So everything that I'm doing with rationality and I like fundamentals. I like to play with fundamentals, but I think what is very important also in our business is to also take into account the behaving of the different participants. So you need to know who is participating to this market in order to know how you can make money with that and why you can make money with that. So at the end of 2021, we make really like, I would say in 6 months, we make like 20 million euros. And our anticipation for 2022, and we could almost, and we are losing only 2 times in 6 months. It was so stable that we are not taking so big a risk already in January 2022. I thought that the challenge for me was done and I wanted to do something slightly different. So I decided to join back Ezpada because I had a long career in Ezpada from 2007 until 2020. And I saw that it was a good environment for me to explore a bit more in the intraday business. And what I wanted to explore more is that when I came to Second Foundation, they told me just focus on how to make money. And basically, they did the market access part, they did the database part. I was not involved that much on that, and so on and so on. And also on the software, on the trading software, we're building our own trading software in Second Foundation. I was involved for how the software should look like and some strategies, algo. But I wanted to dive a bit more in all that. So I joined Ezpada. They asked for me basically to be like project manager, let's say kind of CEO inside the company for the short-term business. And again, I had time to build that. So what I decided to do first is to build a database specific for this intraday business. And it's not as easy as taking, I don't know, Nena or Methodologica or Volue, take the API, plug the data, and then it's done. No. The idea, first of all, was to do with a minimum of cost.
Yeah.
And secondly, to do it with minimum of cost, you need to go to Exchange's webpage of all countries, with a grid webpage of all countries. So basically all public data. And once you do that, the difficulty is that all this data, even if they have the same meaning, they don't necessarily have the same name in the different website. Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea at the beginning was basically to do a mapping of all Europe and organize the data by categories and subcategories. And even from very early stage, what I was also doing is for each data, I was giving a label for which model it could be useful. All this to simplify then the processing data when we will need to start to make the models. This honestly took me a lot of time. It was really the hell to go through all websites, to organize all that. It was a crazy mapping. It's extremely complicated. Once this was done, found data engineer started to scrap the data, because there is two kinds of scrapping. Of course, there is historic data to scrap, and then after there is live to scrap. Quickly, I understood that the difficulties is to have a good infrastructure, to be able to good environment, to be able to build this database, because once you scrap the historic, it's easy, but when you scrap the live, it's not easy. You need really to have no lag and no lag in the data. And sometimes the data on the website are not in time and you need to recall the data, etc., etc. So all this, I went to all these aches, but I found that extremely interesting and needed to be done. Then the second mission that I was doing in parallel was to build the software. I found that extremely interesting, to rebuild the software from scratch. Of course, you can use the software of the exchange, which by default is given and for free once you have the membership. Otherwise, you can use some software which are already existing on the market. But this software which are already existing on the market, and I think they are from relatively good quality. The UI is maybe not good quality. The infrastructure behind is good quality, and they have some algos for helping you to execute better.
Yeah.
So based on that, I would say it's good. It's good for execution, but for me, it's not a trading software like I wanted to have. I wanted to have a trading software which is friendly. I put you in front of the screen and you understand without giving you explanations. So I wanted a software which is user friendly, based on my 20 years of experience of trading. So I know exactly what I wanted. Then also I wanted the software to give you some informations that everyone has, but also to process some informations to already give you some incentive what to trade. for anticipating some trading trend bullish or bearish, or to catch some trend bullish or bearish at the very beginning. And different kind of informations which are extremely important to understand the output of the models, and even to have some strategy which are just purely based on the good lecture of the order book. So this software, we built them almost for 2 years, non-stop, continuing, improving to build it. Of course, on the way we were using the software, but continuously for 2 years we were building that. So once you have this database and the software, and we had that in Ezpada, then the next step was basically to build a team. And the team was organized about the initial statement that I was doing when I was Ezpada. There will be always someone better than me to make models, always someone better than me to execute, and better than me for like collecting the data. So I just identify where I'm good at. I'm good at creating, finding how to make money, understanding the market. So then I created a concept where you have the experts, which are like the guys who have the track record, they understand the market, and we know how to make money. Then you have the data scientist pool, which are building the models based on the input of the experts. And this is extremely important because you can have the best data scientist. If it does not have this expertise and the understanding of the market, the results of the model would be maybe good, but maybe 2 times, 3 times less good than if you have this expertise of the market. What is really important is basically what we call the features engineering. It means that you need to help the machine learning or deep learning. You need to help him to understand better the features. So in processing, if it's doing some features engineering, you are changing the feature to already give one information that then the machine learning is taking, and already basically you help him to learn quicker. So, and this is making very big differences because we have tried absolutely everything. We have tried just randomly, I give you, 1,000 data, and then you run a XGBoost and we see what is happening. Then we reduce that by the selection. You can make a feature selection by machine learning. And then after, you can make different kind of feature selection also with the input of the expert, and so on and so on. So we tested absolutely everything. And what is really important is this features engineering, this expertise given by the expert. And then the data scientist team is basically responsible to build a model. We are not necessarily influencing on the technique which is used. We're influencing on the features which are used. And then we, as experts, we analyze the results with a lot of statistics. And then we have a ping pong with the data scientist, explaining to the data scientist that the results can be better in adding this and this. And once we have something that we like, then this output of the model is sent to a trading team. To do the 24/7, you need to have 5 traders. The trading team, their job for me is not that they cannot take discretionary decisions. They can only trade based on the output of the models. Okay,
that's interesting.
And then the execution, the idea is that the execution, at the beginning, it was manual execution. And step by step, quickly, I realized that it's better to see the trader as an algo operator. Meaning, like, imagine the pilot in his cockpit who can pilot manually to take off and land, but he can also do it half automatic or completely automatic. So for me, I realized this in Ezpada a bit late. Because the difficulty with having a trader behind the screen, which is executing manually 100%, is that, first of all, you need to have the right person behind the screen. So meaning really rigorous and focus. You need someone who will have no emotions, because you can, of course, lose some money on one product. But there is 120 products per day to trade in one country, 24 hours and 96 quarters. So you always need to keep calm. And then the inexperience of the trader behind the screen, because it's easy to panic when the market is illiquid and is 200 on the bid and 2000 on the offer, and you need to buy. So if you come at 201 and then someone is front running you and so on, at the end, you are not going to trade. If you lift at 2000s, it's also a bad trade. So you need to have a right way how to quote the market to be able to not have a high cost of execution of the output of the model. So that's why the algo trading and having a trader which is algo operator is really important. And of course, the last part of the team is the developers, because to be able to make models, you need to have a good data engineer, good infrastructure engineer. And in our case, we had software, so we have software engineer and algo coder. So we were doing this in parallel of market accesses as well. And to recruit this team, I didn't want to go with the normal channel, sorry for that, but to the headhunters. I found one partner who was experienced, so he joined me. And then after, we wanted to have only basically junior.
Okay, interesting.
So why? Is because on this market it's very difficult to get experienced people. At least at my time, it was when I was doing that, it was very complicated.
I can confirm that.
Then to find good ones is even more complicated. So what I did, I created a company in France, which is specialized in recruitment and research. So I registered this company as a research company, and I got actually the credit from the state. I recognized this as a research company, which is not so easy. I'm very proud of that. Because it took me 1 year for that. And to get this, you need to prove to the state that what you are doing is different than what the others are doing. It's not easy process. So we got very successful with that. And then we are using this company to recruit in the best engineering school in France, Centrale, Polytechnique, and SAE, and so on.
Okay.
First, because we are mostly taking people on end study internship. The main reason for that is because these guys are machine for working and they work for an internship, so it's relatively cheap. And then if we are happy after their internship, we can keep them. It was quite a lot, very big team, because we are doing a lot of investigations and on many things. And we have some nice success. And then around the Q4 last year, we decided to slow down a bit the trading, to scale to several countries. And around end of November, I don't know, I started to think about again how I should really continue this, because I see myself more as an entrepreneur than someone who is working for someone else as an employee. And basically, I thought my statement was that we built something which is extraordinary in Ezpada, something which is extremely complicated to build, because honestly, several times I thought that I will never manage it, be able to manage, because it was so many aches. So after some discussion with Ezpada, realized that my fiber of being entrepreneur will not be achievable in Ezpada, and I decided to quit. Ezpada did agree, and I took my guys, because Ezpada wanted to focus. The core of the business of Ezpada is on the long term, is not on the intraday. So I decided to quit, and basically since January, I rebuilt a team of 10, 15 persons with my French company.
Research business.
Research business, Research
What's
business.
It called?
Ingenious Spotters.
Okay, cool.
It has a good name, I think, because basically we try to spot equity where we can make money, and we try to be ingenious. So it means to think about the market in different way. And the concept of this was basically coming from the statement that it's extremely complicated to build the right environment for a trading house to trade the short term. And that's why
a lot of learning this.
And it's taking always much more time than you expect. In Second Foundation, we had the right persons, I mean the right developers, the right back office guys, and so on and so on. And it took 18 months before starting to make serious money. In Ezpada, it took basically 2 years time to find the right persons and so on to build it. And basically, I quickly understand that this is taking more time than expected and obviously much more money than expected.
Yeah.
So basically you start to trade where you have maybe minus 1.5 or minus 2 million euros. And what I realized is that now after going through all these eggs, I know exactly how to, and I have people in my team, how to do the market access in very efficient way to have done, actually we have done several times because we have done in Ezpada for several companies of Ezpada. So we have done several times. We are also building a database in very efficient way because we have the data engineer for that. And the infrastructure, again, I have good infrastructure engineer to have the appropriate environment for the database and appropriate environment for running live the models. Because when you go live, obviously, you will see that some difficulties are coming because the data are not coming in time, because there is some data missing at the moment of the predictions, which can really damage a lot your prediction. So going through all these aids, this part, I know exactly how to build that. And then you have some management tools like cash flow tools, like P&L tools, real-time P&L calculation, using imbalance daily price, continuous intraday price, using some expected price for imbalance, and so on and so on. And also the positions tools that we are also building. And also something that I forgot to mention to you because I think you would be interested in that. It's concerning the weather. We are also, since I quitted also with my guys, we're also rebuilding the power curve, wind and solar power curve. And basically what we are doing is like, we have already built this, we can build that in 6 months, we can rebuild complete new environments with everything I have mentioned. So yeah, if you want, I can tell you a bit more about the weather. I think it can be also an interesting topic.
This podcast is brought to you today by Nimble Alpha, who provides systematic market insights and are trusted daily by some of the highest performing power and gas traders at tier one energy trading houses. Nimble Alpha delivers clear, data-driven signals across TTF, MBP, EUAs, German Power, Brent, and Henry Hub. They allow you to anticipate short-term trends, time executions, so you can stay ahead of volatility. So whether you trade spec, handle client flow, or manage risk, Nimble Alpha allows you to make sharper decisions with full transparency. In today's quant-driven markets, it's the perfect overlay of your fundamental research. So book your free trial today in the link below and get 10% off your first subscription. Stay nimble. Yeah, for sure. I think there's loads to questions I want to ask through what you've just said there. It's been fascinating hearing it. But yeah, we can continue with the weather now if you want.
Yeah. Okay, so the weather, the statement is easy. On this market, so you have some weather forecasts which are done by, like for instance, EC, GFS, ESHAM, and so on. So they are giving you raw data of weather. And then this raw data of weather are taken by some vendors, NENA, Energy Quantify, Volue, and Meteorologica, and so on and so on. And then based on that, they are building their own power curve. So they are changing this raw data into megawatts, okay? And the core of these models is 4 times a day, every 6 hours. So I found that not enough for trading the intraday, because let's not forget that the intraday developed itself because of the exponential development of the renewables energy, and mostly because of the wind and the solar. The wind and the solar is basically some type of energy. I'm calling them fatal. It means that if you have solar or if there is wind, basically to simplify, you have no choice. You need to produce. Okay, doesn't matter the price. That's why sometimes the price is negative, because if the marginal demand is supplied by the wind or the solar, the price can be negative, because in the order book of the day exchange, the price is going from minus 500 to 3,000. The price can be negative. If you need to sell, you must sell. So it doesn't matter. So of course, now we will probably talk about it after, because the batteries are changing a bit the picture. So it means, and it's extremely complicated, particularly the cloudiness, to forecast accurately. And this is creating huge volatility with the development exponential of these power plants, huge volatility in the intraday. So having a forecast only 4 times a day is definitely not enough. So what we have decided to do, because I realized that we have good data scientists, is basically to build our own power curve. So first thing we did, we found a forecaster of raw data, which is not EC, GFS, and so on, with a much higher resolution. And then after we took this data, and this data were available every hour with a granularity of 30 minutes. And from 72 hours before start delivery, and then continuously every hour. So we took this data. Then after what we did, we created deep machine and deep learning models. And then we forecasted the power curve, solar and wind in few countries. The thing is like the pipeline, once it exists for one country, it's easy to duplicate to any countries. And then we started to test it. To test it, you have two ways to do it. The first way is to put this forecast into the core of the models for forecasting, for instance, the imbalance price, and then see if this feature is improving the results or not. The problem of that is you need to have enough historic in the database, which was not the case because the historic was not given by the vendor selling this data. So found a way out to benchmark that. Basically, the idea was to benchmark this forecast based on 3 benchmarks. The first benchmark is to compare the difference between our forecast and the realized versus the difference between the best vendor forecast and the realized. So first we identify what was the best vendor forecast, so from methodological and so on and so on, and then compare to see what was this delta, if we were closer in average or not. Bon. The second, and the results of that was extremely good because 90% of the time we were closer. Then after, the second benchmark is basically how often we are closer of the realized than the best vendor. And again, it was same results. And for me, what is the most important is the last benchmark, is how often we're giving the right direction of the realized, meaning you have 1,000 megs of wind. The best vendor is forecasting 1,000. We forecast, 1,200. And then at the end is 1,300 realized. So we were giving the right direction in predicting that it would be more solar. And on this, we have results of, let's say, from 75 to 85% of the time, we are also better than the best vendor. So this is something that we have built in Ezpada, and actually since I put it Ezpada, we are rebuilding this on our side.
Wow. Yeah, well, obviously the weather is the edge that everyone wants. So I guess how valuable is, like, when you're beating what is available?
It's a huge
how
value.
How valuable is that?
It's a huge value.
Is that where most of the P&L can be unlocked in today's market if you have an advantage with weather?
I can tell you, with just the feature of the forecast, of the solar forecast, for instance, with some features engineering around this forecast, some probability, some expectation, and so on, playing also with some calibrating some threshold. Then we are catching, just with this feature and features engineering around this feature, we were catching about 30% of the maximum margin possible to catch. On 30%, only with that, it's a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Already, if you catch 20% of the maximum margin with all features, you're already happy. But here it was even better. So of course, it has a big value. And not only for and here I'm talking mostly a big value for the imbalance. But what you need to understand is that for the imbalance, actually having a better forecast is mostly helping when there start to be a difference between what was expected and the realized, because people are not expecting this difference. And of course, after, when this difference is happening, people will adjust themselves. The participants will adjust themselves. So it does not mean that the grid will continue. If there is more solar, for instance, that the grid will continue to be long because people will adjust themselves. But what it means that at least the continuous intraday the price of continuous intraday is going to decrease. So the first key school effect, I'm calling that, the first key school effect is like having good forecast will give you an incentive for the imbalance. at the beginning where the forecast, the realized is different than the forecast. And then after, it will give you an incentive for anticipating how the continuous intraday will trade, because people will adjust themselves based on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, it's fascinating because I've talked a lot on this podcast recently about like the new developments of deep learning, AI, advantages for weather forecasting. So is the reasons you're able to be performing at that level, is it down to deep learning, AI, or what do you credit it? Why are you able to beat the forecasts that are available in the market?
That's a good question. It's for me, it was strange actually. I was nicely surprised that so quickly we can beat what is existing for ages on the market. And I would say the first reason is because we have some raw data forecasted with a higher resolution than what is available with the other forecaster. So it's allow us to be more accurate. Then second reason is that we make a lot of research about the power plants, about the capacity of each power plant, and you know that it's changing continuously, so you need to continuously change it. About the location of the power plant, which is of course extremely important. And also what is not given is that the realized wind or solar is given aggregated by country, but is not given by plants. So it means that you need to have good model. You need to make an estimation of the realized produced by each power plant. And there is different techniques for that. So we, again, for 6 months, we were working a lot on that, making some experimentation. What is the best, how to calibrate, how to weight each power plant, if we should weight by the population, by the consumption, by the industrial activity, and so on and so on. So in some countries, it's easier. Like, for instance, I think that in the United States, they are giving also the realized of each power plant in real time. So this makes things easier. But in Europe, it's not that easy. So voila. And I think, of course, having good data scientists, it's helping. But this research, preliminary research, and finding the right supplier for this raw data, I think making 50% of the job.
Okay, interesting. So that research of the power plant, is that done more by like a fundamental modeler than a machine learning like engineer?
So of course, the idea was to find there is no one who is selling you this data because it's too precious. So what we are trying is to find, actually there is some public data that you can find if you go locally. Locally, there is almost everywhere there is some local data that you can find for free, but it's not easy to find, to be honest. We had just one person looking for that almost every day. So complicated.
So yeah, look, it's really interesting to hear that your process and how you use weather to your advantage. Because yeah, I think there's so many businesses that are trying to find edges. Like I said earlier, a lot of them are really seeing AI, machine learning as a way forward, and there's some really interesting new developments, models, companies coming up. The last podcast was an AI researcher that was talking about all that. But something I really want to talk about is just rewind back to Second Foundation, because I think we covered it, but I think there's probably some people listening to this podcast who didn't even know Second Foundation exists. But they've been remarkably successful, as you alluded to earlier, and you were there right from the beginning. And today, they're probably the biggest player in intraday. From as far as I can see, the performances are unbelievable. And not many people still know who these guys are. So I find it fascinating that a company could be so successful and keep a low profile. But you were there from the beginning. So I guess I'd really like to try and understand, especially in such a short space of time and the numbers that you were quoting earlier, tens of millions. What were the ingredients? Why were they able to do these kind of numbers when no one else was able to do these kind of numbers? What was different? Understanding that recipe would be really interesting.
So I would say all stars were aligned, arriving on the right time on the market. When the rules of the market were changing, arriving where it was not yet so many speculators accepted the Danish participants, but otherwise not so many speculators in the other countries. Having the chance to have the right persons, again, it's a team building, it's a teamwork. The first thing is to have a right mapping database infrastructure. If you have that, then you just have to find the right data scientist and the right expert. But if you have the right data scientist, the right expert, and you don't have a right database, you will never make money, or you will make something, but it will not be extraordinary. Then finding the right expert who knows the market and understands, and having a different approach that everyone has, and understand who is participating. The generators is still 95% of the participants. What is their incentive? Their incentive is basically they have a production, they want to buy, they want to sell, they have some must buy, some must sell. These guys, they are not allowed in general to go in imbalance. So they want to get rid of what they have to get rid. And because XBID is sharing order book with different countries, the incentive of the different generators is not the same according to the countries because the rules are different. This is creating some situation where, for instance, the bid will be given at 200 euros and the ask will be lifted at 300, and all this in 10 seconds. So you need to understand who is in this market and for whom this intraday market has been created. Okay. I'm not saying that generators are losing money. No, generators are not losing money. They are selling and buying higher or lower than their marginal cost. They are making money. But of course, if you understand how it's working, then you can optimize better the assets and you can trade better based on that. So I think in Second Foundation, we had the right environment, the right persons. And then I think the key is also that we are building very quickly the software for having our own algos and to execute quicker than the market. Okay. And this was kind of exceptional because, for instance, I remember we're also using this software to trade the curve, and brokers calling me and saying, how fast you are, it's incredible. And we were still manual trading. It's just because we were able to trade in one click instead of 3 or 4. And then, of course, what is important is to be participating to several markets in the same time, to trade several markets in the same time, because the value at risk is extremely low comparing to the curve. We count maybe 100,000 euros per country. But if you trade several countries, you are decreasing actually your risk, because it's rare that all countries are in the same direction, all of them are long or short. And even if they are in the same direction, because there is different rules for the imbalance, then it's possible actually to make some arbitrage between these rules and between the different countries. And that's why it's so important. And that's why after 14 months, we had a good database with the Second Foundation. We had several countries, and then we were able to trade in several countries in the same time. So, and this was like without a crazy market price. I mean, it was before 222.
Yeah, which I find amazing.
And we're still at the very beginning. So yeah, I think this is the key success.
Okay, so just to unpack that.
And actually, there is something else after, because of course the way how they develop it is also smart way. Basically, is optimizing the assets and turning also the trading around these assets. So they have basically three sources of income. They have the optimization of the assets. They have the prop trading, speculation, and then they are making money. Also, they have an advantage also with the software that they have. Yes, you are right. They are low profile outside.
Yeah. Everyone looks at Denmark. Like everyone has been looking at Denmark, and I think all the attention's been there, and rightly so. They perform very well. But these guys over here quietly, because it's Czech Republic, because it's not a trading hub, these guys have quietly been dominating. And like I say, still to this day, not a lot of people know about them, and they're in all the markets globally. Very big trading player in all these markets. So I find it fascinating. But just to unpack that, because it seems like what you just explained there, they were doing this in 2021, and this is what everyone is starting to try and do now. So they were like way ahead of the game. And from what I'm aware, as you say, like these guys were mathematicians and software engineers. They weren't traders. So this new modern world of trading intraday, they were really well equipped to do that, and then just needed someone to understand the fundamentals of how the market worked and feed the models. So I think that that is really interesting. And again, a lot of people are trying to do that now, but no one was really doing it other than a couple in 2021. Is my take on it. And like you say, starting with the data base first, I don't hear that a lot. I have a lot of clients come to me and say, find me data scientists, find me algo traders. And they get those guys in situ before any work's been done on the data side. And I think this is a takeaway for me. This is what people are missing out on. You miss the really important foundational part of the process.
It's very bad to do this. It's very bad because you get the people and you accumulate the cost, and actually it's almost impossible. And they are doing what? Almost nothing. They can use maybe 2 or 3 data that they will scrap themselves or that they will take from one vendor. But actually, this is for nothing. What is really important is to have a good database from very beginning. And also what is very important, so the mapping is really important. The infrastructure is very important. And what is important is not only the raw data. Some data needs to be processed to create some new features. And then you need to store these features and organize these features correctly in your database, because this will simplify a lot the work of the data scientist. When the data scientist will call the data, he will not have to process this data before starting the modeling. So basically what I'm doing is like, it's well organized, it's already processed, and the data scientist just have to take the data that he needs and then plug in his model and focus on the technique of the model. And this is what is the most important.
It's like hiring the F1 driver before you've built the car.
Yeah, exactly. And like this, there is no uncertainty. If you have the database infrastructure, the market access, like I'm doing in 6 months, everything is done. And staffing the team, I staff 40%. So, and you find the right persons, then you start almost, I would say, your first trade has a chance to be already successful. And you start with a few countries from day one. If you have a good person in your team, which is my case, I have lawyers who are doing that several times, market access, it takes from 4 months to 1 year. But the first countries you get after 4 months, you get some countries after 6 months, some other countries after 8 months. And after 1 year, you get maybe 10 countries. This we have done, and we know exactly the process to follow and who to talk and who to contact.
So I guess what also is important, which I see other people probably sometimes falling down on, is the benefit of being in many countries as quickly as possible. I think some companies I've seen, they start too tentatively, like they'll go into like one country first, and then they'll try and get up and running there, and then they'll take another 4 months to then get into another country, rather than trying to do as much as possible at the same time. I think that's what I'm learning as well, is an advantage, right? Covering yourselves in as many countries as quickly as possible.
It's a big advantage, because most what I'm hearing often is like, let's start by one country, have the proof of concept. And then we continue. But the fact is taking so much time to do the market access. It's taking so much time to get a good database. To get historic. It takes so much time to find the right persons that this is not the right way to do. You need to start everything in the same time, because at least for me, it doesn't cost so much money to do the market access, and it starts to cost really some money to have one country, when actually you need to put the collateral and the risk capital to start to be able to trade. But at least for me, it doesn't cost anything to do the market access, the licensing, until the moment you are able to trade. For me, it's not expensive to do it. I've done it and I know exactly how much it costs. It starts to cost money when you start to trade. So that's why it's important to do these steps in the same time. And also because when you trade one country, you know, there is seasonality as well. So you can start to trade one country at the worst time of the year. And then the country where on the yearly basis, you will be right 80% of the day, you will be positive. If you start on the wrong period, and it's more or less random, it's not completely random, but because there is seasonality. But then from 80% of the time positive, you can turn to 60% or 50%, and maybe for 1 month. And after you will be 100% for the next 2 or 3 months. So it means that it can be discouraging to do that. I saw that with Ezpada. It's not good to do that. It's good to, I saw the opposite with Second Foundation. And really, I saw the changes in the figures as soon as we were trading several countries in the
Yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
time.
No, I've seen that work well with other companies as well that have adopted that approach. But I think basically what you've just laid out there is, I think, some of the mistakes that have been made in the last 2 years by companies who've entered the markets and not done those steps properly. And then they're at a point 2 years in now, probably spent €2 million, like you say, on staffing and time and investment. And they're looking at this and going, why are we not making tens of millions yet? And they're here for that, and they're 2 years in and they're getting impatient. And I question how much longer can these guys stay interested if they're not making that money at that time frame. And I think you've just kind of shown the reasons why they're probably not been able to do that, because of the database, etc. So yeah, I find it really interesting just going through that.
And it's not like I did the same mistakes. I did also some mistakes. I know what I did good in Second Foundation, and I know why it worked. But actually, I realized why it worked when I joined Ezpada, because in Ezpada, I have to do everything myself, from database to software to be obliged to create a company for research and for recruiting talents, training the people from scratch, just junior from scratch. And it was like so much aches. And me too, in Ezpada, it took me a lot of time. And I knew already, because I have successful experience in Second Foundation. But now, based on these two, I have clear idea how this needs to be done. And it's exactly what I'm doing since January, to build this database, this infrastructure, to start working on the weather. Now I'm also looking for an investor to rebuild the software, because I think we have built something extraordinary which does not exist on the market.
Yeah.
And also, what is very important, and maybe we should emphasize it a bit more, is the people with whom you are working. It's really important to find the right alchemy in terms of skills and character with the people. I have chance to have a good partner who was with me with Ezpada, who absolutely wanted to follow me. And now I'm plugging new people as well. He make all his life a lot of money, and he specializes himself on the optimization of the assets. And this is something that I want also to work on that and give to my partners this advantage to have someone who has good experience with optimization of the assets, particularly the batteries, who has built models for that, which has already a track record, which is very good, because the batteries is changing and going to change even more the market. Now there is more and more people who have batteries, so it's giving some flexibility. We always say that the electricity, you cannot store the electricity. Bon, already with the reservoir and the pump storage, hydro, you can. But now with the battery, you can even more. But there is so many people who are like building batteries and so on, that the market will start to be extremely competitive. It means that people who have assets initially, they just have to go on ancillary services, playing the balancing market, going on ancillary services to help the grid to balance the production consumption. And it was enough. But now, because of the competitivity which is increasing in terms of assets, it's creating an obligation to optimize correctly these assets between the trading the curve, the day ahead, the continuous intraday, the going in imbalance, or playing the ancillary services. And this is exactly what we anticipated. My partner is already working on that for 1 year and a half, and has already models which is running. It is extremely good. And this is something that also I want to propose because we have good track record with that.
Okay. So just to be clear, like obviously from you now, you're an entrepreneur, you've got your own obviously business. So you're not looking to go and do this in-house again. Like you've done it twice before, 3 times before. So what are you looking for at this stage? If there's anyone listening and has been super impressed by, Pierre-Emmanuel is someone we'd love to collaborate with. What's the angle here? How can partnerships be made?
So for me, I may be emotional and sensitive, but it's important to write with person that I appreciate. So it means to find a good partner with whom We have the same ambition, meaning making money, always how to find new equities and how to develop the business. Basically, I want to find a good partner with whom I could help to be onboarded in this short-term business by giving my experience of building a trading house from scratch with delivering in a definite time market access, infrastructure, database, team, and then supervising, training the team, and then collaborate with the operational part when they start to the trading in more or less active way. Of course, what is for me the most important is to deliver quality job, and the quality job, and I think it's what we do is, I think, very good quality. And of course, what is interesting for me is to see the results of this quality job. So that's why for me, this initial phase of building an environment for short-term business is not the most lucrative. What is the most interesting is after the partnership, which is starting, and how did we develop the business with more or less active participation from me or from my guys. And we actually also have someone in my team who built also a trading desk for trading the curve and so on very successfully. This is also something that we can do. But I like to focus for people who are maybe not trading energy power in Europe, to start by something which is, I would say, kind of secure and less risky, building this short-term business, and then step by step move to something else.
Okay.
Of course, what you might say, okay, but if I'm afraid maybe of the competition and that there is more and more counterparties, and in reality, not at all, because all business are competitive. Sooner or later, people will come. Okay, so this you cannot do anything against that.
Yeah, and they've come already in the last 2 years.
Exactly, they are coming. So this you cannot avoid. The fact is they are coming, but they are coming with a huge cost, as I said, because it takes much more time and much more money than expected. So they are coming with 2 million, and instead of coming maybe with 500,000 or less on this market. So, and in 6 months instead of 1 year and a half or 2. But I think, this market was at the beginning essentially for generators. It's still for generators mostly. And traders are coming, and I see speculators are coming, and I think it's really good. It's really good that they are coming because, of course, it's increasing the liquidity. And it's really good because when you trade with a speculator, you don't change physically the market. It means that it's bringing volatility, liquidity, but physically, it does not mean that you can trade less volume because you are afraid to change the imbalance. I like to bring competition where we can find more liquidity, we can go in more higher frequency. It's still missing, still people will make money. What is important to understand is the rules are changing constantly. So it means that constantly you need to be more creative, you need to renew yourself. You need to always think 1 step, 2 step forward. And there is place for everyone on this market. And I'm happy that people are coming.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think I actually spoke to someone about this the other day who runs a shop. And I said, look, is the increased competition making it harder for you guys? And they were like, it's not really about the competition. It's about the rule changes. Like they're impacting them way more than the competition is, because what worked, and they've got all these models that work. Then there's a rule change in a country, and it doesn't work anymore. So then you've got to completely rethink how to make money in that market, because what worked yesterday doesn't work today. And they said by far that's the biggest challenge. It's not to do with new entrants, and I found that interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, what is happening if you have new entrants is that, okay, you will maybe do less margin on the one model, and maybe you will have less hit success. But you will also trade bigger volume and can be much bigger volume, because now the rules are, you said new competitors wants to come and will come, but still it will take 2 years probably before they are coming. Yes, this liquidity is also increased by the fact that since beginning of the year, for instance, France went into a quarterly contract. and France is rather deep market, that the step-by-step, almost now all countries in Europe have imbalance in quarterly, so meaning have X-bid also on quarterly. Now the spot exchange is also on quarterly. So all this bring much more liquidity to hourly and quarterly. At the moment, quarterly actually is not so much more liquid than before, but simply because people were not ready when this opportunity to take a position on quarterly basis on the day ahead came. It means like in October, then they were not necessary, except generators, ready for that. But of course, step by step, it's like we saw with the intraday auction, intraday implicit auction. At the moment, at the beginning, the depth was extremely low, but now it's increasing a lot. And people will get used of that, and the liquidity, my guess, liquidity next year on the quarterly contract will be extremely big. It was already decent, but it would be maybe twice bigger at least.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. So I think like it'd be really good to get your view on the market today and the way it's going. So obviously there's going to be more liquidity. You mentioned like obviously the influx of batteries. Do you think that this market is going to stay like continue to be a very interesting, a lot of opportunity here for the people with the right approaches?
I think it will become more and more technical because the batteries will bring a lot of complexity, the way how it's needed to be optimized. I think the fact that a lot of speculators will come, it will also change the behaving. The fact that the rules are changing continuously, it means that your models, as you said, will be obsolete and you will not have enough historic in your database to build new models. Alors, there is way how to turn around, but this is, and the electricity, okay, the price, it will always be, I mean, also some spike because there is always a war on the right and on the left, unfortunately, very sad, but you see how the politics worldwide is completely crazy. So for sure, it will be some episodes, political episodes. It will be for sure some stories with extremely hot or extremely cold, with some issues with the power plants. The imbalance rules will never be the same in all countries. So all this will continue, and all volatility. And what we can see maybe less is like some very big spike. Before we are talking about spike only on the upper side. What we will see probably more and more is a spike on the other side. So price extremely low, but doesn't matter. Time the volatility is here.
But to be able to win in this market today and moving forward, like, do you have to be very strong on a data science and algorithmic trading perspective now? Because obviously we've had 5 years ago, you could make money just having a team of shift traders, but without those models, without that data science, algo trading, software, speed, without any of that, is it just, are you a dinosaur now and you just won't be able to compete?
Alors, all or nothing, I don't believe in that. So it means I don't believe in just discretionary, where the trader is behind the screen and experienced, which is still working, I think, in the rest of the curve. But I really believe, and also because, as I said, I'm not trading just according to my feeling. I really believe in machine learning, deep learning model, helped by AI, and really fundamentals approach to which probably you need to plug some market exchange data, some behaving inside this. I believe in that, and I do not believe in the manual execution of the trader, even if it's based on the output of the model, simply because this market can be complicated when it's illiquid. When it's UK or Germany, extremely liquid, then it's not so big a deal to execute manually, but when it's different countries of Central Europe or Balkan, then it's a bit more complicated. So that's why the algorithmic execution is important. And again, the best combination is to have a smart algo operator who understands what he's doing, understand when to turn one algo or another one, understand when the algo is doing some bullshit, understand when someone is manipulating your algo in order that he can activate, deactivate. I see really that as someone playing on Xbox, with playing a game and choosing the right weapons to face the environment. So I see that like this, and I don't believe as well in the full algorithmic. I don't believe in that. I still, well, of course, it will work, and I think you have interviewed some people in the previously in some podcasts who are doing that. But I think the best combination is the one I'm saying, the one where you have an algo operator behind the algo who can play with the algo, and sometimes he can decide as well to go manual if he sees something abnormal. And I think this is the best combination.
So having that fundamental background, trader who knows what's going on in the market, and having then models and algos, and then they run most of the time, but then in some scenarios they can spot something's happening today. The algo's probably not going to catch it all. We need to get involved. Is that what you mean? So having that hybrid of both.
Yeah, the hybrid is not exactly in this way. I'm completely against. An output is telling you to buy, and the algo operator will decide to sell. This I'm completely against.
Right.
It should not be any discretionary trading. But the algo operator can notice that the output of the model is running with some features which are missing, which are important. So decide to not play, or otherwise notice that the market has changed. And the same case, now the market has changed. I think the models is obsolete. We need to change it, or launching the algo, and then the algo is supposed to execute is not executing in the right way, so something is wrong. So you see, rather as a supervisor than something else. Because it's not working if you sometimes you follow, sometimes you not follow the models. If you want to be consistent, you need to have a consistent strategy. Either you follow or you don't follow. If the model is not good, we have a statistic which are running in real time. If the model is not good, then you stop the model and you rework on that.
Amazing. Well, look, Pierre-Emmanuel, I could talk to you all day about this topic. I think it's fascinating hearing your thoughts there. I think we went into a lot of detail. Obviously, you've been very successful in your career in this space. And obviously, it's really interesting what you're doing now. I'm sure there'll be some parties listening to this that might want to have a chat off the back of this. So, obviously, we'll make sure that we share your contact details. Just really appreciate your time, Pierre-Emmanuel. Thanks a lot.
No, it's a pleasure. You know, when I'm talking about it, and when you do that for 20 years, more than 20 years, you need to be captivating by what you are doing. And I think the fact that this market is continuously changing is making things so much interesting, and you cannot be bored. So,
absolutely. Amazing. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.